Good morning, everyone. I was supposed to speak on a different topic this morning. I changed it during the week when I realized that today is the birth anniversary of Swami Brahmananda, who was the first president of the Ramakrishna order, spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna. So I thought that it would be nice if we heard a little bit about Swami Brahmananda. Many of you are following Swami Bhaswaranji's class, which is a wonderful class. If you're not, I would suggest trying to attend the Zoom class Wednesday morning. He's going through everything in great detail, but I'll kind of give an overview. Swami Brahmananda, his pre-monastic name was Rakal, and he was born on January 21st, 1863, just 9 days after Swami Vivekananda, Narendra. And they really had such a close relationship and played such an important role in our movement. It's interesting how close they were in age. Others also, many of them were born that same year and around that same period. But when we study his life, it's really a tremendous lesson that we get in some of the very spiritual truths of spiritual life, of spiritual practice, of attainment, of what it's like to be in the presence of a God-realized soul who has tremendous experiences and mystical experiences and ecstasy. We expect it from Sri Ramakrishna, but we see that it wasn't just him. And the life of Swami Brahmananda is interesting because he was the closest to Sri Ramakrishna in terms of this ability to go into deep spiritual moods, have different types of spiritual experiences. So when we study his life, we get great inspiration and conviction that it's possible to have these higher states of realization. And we get some resolve that we also should make a great effort to not waste this opportunity and try to achieve something in spiritual life. So to me, these things are important. And we get inspiration, then we get conviction, and then we get resolve. And we'll see that Swami Brahmananda, he placed great emphasis on effort, spiritual practice, not simply Swamiji. We know Swamiji was a great proponent of self-effort, but Swami Brahmananda also, though he was very devotional in nature, and we would expect this idea of Sharanagati and reliance on God, but reliance on God means that first we have to put forth a tremendous effort. The other interesting thing is that though he was of such a mystical nature, he was extremely practical. And he's really the one who built up the entire order. Swamiji laid the foundation, but he built the building. He was really the one who enacted all of the initiatives that Swamiji wanted to see. And then so many monks joined, so many centers opened during his time. And he was just guided everything so easily and gently, and the order really took its roots during the time that Swami Brahmananda was president of the order. My first 16 years of monastic life were in Southern California. Many of you know that. And Swami Prabhavanandaji was the one who founded that center, and still the long shadow of Swami Prabhavanandaji falls over all of Southern California. And really, somehow, the personality of Swami Brahmananda is stamped on everything in Southern California. So my early monastic life was a little bit formed with that. Many of the senior monks who were there when I joined were his disciples, Swami Prabhavanandaji's disciples. So we always heard about Maharaj said this, Maharaj said that. That was his. He had several nicknames: Raja Maharaj, and simply Maharaj. So if in Southern California at least, and throughout the order generally, you talk about Maharaj, it means Swami Brahmananda. So Another nice association is our Swami Sarvadevananda ji. For many years was in charge of the center, which was the ancestral home of Swami Brahmananda, Shikara Kulingram. And my last trip to India, two of us went there together and spent some time there. It's just near the Sundarban area, and they do a lot of work with the poor people in that area, orphanages and schools and everything. So all of this, these are all nice reminders of Swami Brahmananda. So let me say a little bit about his early life. As I say, born on January 21st, 1863, in this village of Shikara Kulingram. His mother was greatly devoted to Sri Krishna, and it was because of that that he was given the name Rakal. Rakal is the name of the cowherd boys. They were all cowherd boys, Sri Krishna and his friends, when they enacted their play in Vrindavan. So he was given that name. He was the only child conceived by the mother and very much devoted to his mother, who unfortunately died when he was only 5 years old. We find this happened with some of the others also, that the mother died young and the father married a second time. It happened with M also and some of the others. His father was, to be nice to him, we can say is a somewhat worldly man. He's actually quite worldly man. Not that he was an atheist or anything like that, but they had some property and everything, and he was more concerned about worldly things, we can say. Not that he was out for enjoyment all the time, but not so much inclined to spiritual life. And after his first wife died, he remarried, and he did influence Rakal in several ways. That he loved the garden, and Rakal also loved the garden. This gardening was something throughout his whole life that he was interested in. There are nice little pictures we can form of our minds of Swami Brahmananda and Swami Vivekananda butting heads at Belur Math with Swamiji, all of the animals that he kept, who sometime would get into the garden, and Swami Brahmananda, all of the flower gardens and things. If you go to Belur Math, you'll see that there are many wonderful species of trees from all over India. These are all because of Swami Brahmananda. When he traveled to different places, if he saw some beautiful variety of tree, he would have it planted in Belur Math. So he got that, at least that much, this love of gardening, from his father. When he was 12 years old, he was sent to school in Kolkata. This was a very common thing. Those who lived in the outskirts or in villages would be sent to school there. And this school had an athletic club, a gymnasium. He used to do the wrestling and gymnastics and things. And Swami Vivekananda Narendra was also a member of that club, and they became very good friends. So their friendship began before they met Sri Ramakrishna. And together they joined the Brahmo Samaj. Now, we know this Brahmo Samaj played a very, very important role in the formation of the Ramakrishna order and the monks that came to join, and many householders also. And it was because of Keshav that the name of Sri Ramakrishna became known throughout Kolkata, that he came to meet Sri Ramakrishna sometime in the 1870s. Actually, Sri Ramakrishna went to meet him. And they really formed a very beautiful relationship, a very loving type of relationship, a great mutual respect within that relationship. And the members of the Brahmo Samaj, many of them were very devoted to Sri Ramakrishna, and he would be invited to their homes when they had these annual festivals. There were some who were, I would say, a little bit jealous that of all the young men who went to him, who used to go to the Brahmo Samaj, but many of them sincerely were great devotees, but none more than Keshav. So Keshav would often speak about him and write about him. They had a kind of newsletter that came out. So many of them were aware of Sri Ramakrishna, and it seems that Rakal went to meet him before Narendra. Now, this is another interesting thing. They were such close friends. I have a suspicion, I haven't read this anywhere, I have a suspicion that probably he hesitated to say anything to Narendra, because later we find that Narendra was a real stickler for things. That you signed a pledge for the Brahmo Samaj, that you don't go to temples and bow down before the image. There were a lot of things like that. And the Rakal was very soft in nature. So maybe he was afraid that, oh, what will Narendra say? So Narendra had to find Sri Ramakrishna on his own. And Rakal, he went probably some months before Narendra. So both of them met Sri Ramakrishna in 1881. So this will be sometime then, Narendra towards the end of 1881. Anyhow, even before this, so the Rakal, he was very, we can say naturally religious and spiritual in nature, and even as a boy, he would spend much time in prayer and meditation, and he was not a good student. He was one of those that really, he was always kind of indifferent to the world. This is why it's so interesting how particular he was when it came to the order. But with regard to himself, that, yeah, whether he did well in school, it didn't really make too much difference. So he never paid too much attention, and more interested in spiritual things. Now, because of this, his father was a little bit worried that he would have very poor prospects, and part of the practical wisdom in India is that if there's any problem with the son, you get him married. Yeah. This even even goes back to Sri Ramakrishna himself, that it was his mother and his older brothers that thought, yeah, he's acting like a crazy person, we better get him married. So, and marriages could be done at a young age in those days. So he was only 16, this is in 1881, probably prior to meeting Sri Ramakrishna, 16, and married to a young girl named Vishweshwari Mitra, who was 11 years old at that time. And unfortunately, this happened in other cases. One in particular is Purna, that he really had the temperament to be a monk, and his parents forced him to marry because they were afraid that he'll renounce everything. And Sri Ramakrishna somehow knew that if they force him to marry, he won't live long, and he died quite young. So, for whatever reason, he was married, and when he went to Sri Ramakrishna, somehow Sri Ramakrishna didn't seem to pay too much attention, which is also unusual. Because if we remember the first meeting with M, when Sri Ramakrishna says to him, "Are you married?" And he says, "Yes, sir, I'm married." And then he says, "Oh, Ramlal, he's married." And M writes, "As if I did a terrible thing." And then, "Do you have children?" "Yes, children." "Oh my, all the children also." And then he explained that, you see, I can tell by looking at a person, their nature, that you have good signs that you could have been someone to lead a monastic life, something like that. This is why I reacted like that. And when Narendra, after his father died, when they were in such financial straits, there was talk of arranging a marriage for him with some wealthy family that would have taken care of all of their problems. And Sri Ramakrishna, without saying much or making a big fuss, is quietly prayed to the Divine Mother to upset the whole thing. But in the case of Rakal, somehow we don't find any big reaction like that. Even a son was born, not too much after that. And unfortunately, both the wife and the son died young. And the son, actually, wife died first. The son was, I won't say half raised by the monks, but very much, they all knew him and liked him very much and thought that maybe he'll become a monk also. I don't remember, I think maybe he was only 7 years old, something. He fell and got some cut on his leg that turned gangrene, something like that, and died young. But all of this is part of that Leela. We know, very hard to understand how spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna would for some reason, need to go through this experience of marriage and having a child. Anyhow, the marriage proved to be the reason why this Rakal met Sri Ramakrishna, because his wife's brother was Manamohan Mitra, and he and his mother, Shyama Sundari, were great devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. So it was through his brother-in-law that he went for the first time. He had probably heard through the Brahmo Samaj, but he had a desire to meet him, so he went with his brother-in-law, and immediately seeing him felt some type of connection. And this was very common when Sri Ramakrishna met those ones who were destined to play an important role in his Leela, and when they would meet him, that there would be some immediate type of connection. Now, before this is the period, because he was one of the first to come. Maybe Latu Maharaj earlier, but of all the direct disciples, one of the earliest. Before that, we know that he would go up to the roof of the building and cry out to Mother every night, "Mother, well, where are you? Come, devotees. Why aren't you bringing them? I'm longing to see them," and everything. But he had some special prayer to have one who would be kind of a companion, almost like his own son. So he said, one of his prayers to Divine Mother, "Mother, I want someone to be my constant companion. Bring me a boy who is pure-hearted and intensely devoted to you." Then he had 3 visions. A few days after this prayer, he had a vision of a boy standing under a banyan tree at Dakshineshwar. Then, a few days before the Rakal came, he said, "Mother placed a little boy in my lap and said, 'This is your son.' At first, I was startled. I said, 'How can I have a son?' He had no relationship with his wife. 'How can I have a son?' Mother smiled at this and made me understand that I was not to have a son in the ordinary sense, but that this boy would be my spiritual son, one who would live up to the highest ideal of renunciation." So we consider him Manasaputra, consider him to be the spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna. And then just before Rakal came, Sri Ramakrishna had a vision. He saw 1,000-petaled lotus blooming in the Ganges with 2 boys dancing with anklets on. One was Sri Krishna, and the other was the same boy that he saw in the earlier vision. So these are all things that are very clear in Sri Ramakrishna's mind. They're so clear that when he sees him, he'll recognize him. They're not just vague types of things. So as soon as Rakal came with this Manamohan Mitra, Sri Ramakrishna recognized him as the boy that he saw in his visions. And when he heard the name Rakal, this confirmed it to him. Now, I always find it interesting how much faith Sri Ramakrishna had in names. There's another interesting thing that, say, when Niranjan came, Niranjan means stainless, pure. He said, "Niranjan has come, he's pure to the very bone." Then Purna, when Purna came, he said, "Divine Mother was telling me that now the circle is complete. No more of the intimate disciples will come after that." So, and Narendra, Nara, he identified him with the great sage Nara. So these names had great significance for Sri Ramakrishna and indicated to him some very deep type of spiritual truth or spiritual connection, we can say. So when Rakal came, he felt intense joy in the presence of Sri Ramakrishna. And remember that his mother died when he was 5 years old. And stepmothers very often don't have the same relationship as the birth mother. And he missed that very much. And when he met Sri Ramakrishna, he felt he was reunited with his own mother somehow. He felt the love of the mother. Now, this same thing happened with Swami Shivananda. And to such an extent that Swami Shivananda, Mahapurush Maharaj, used to address Sri Ramakrishna as Ma, as mother. Yeah. So many of them felt that maternal love. And this maternal love really manifested itself in ways that we might consider strange. That Rakal, he was big. He wasn't a small little boy, very large. He would sit in the lap of Sri Ramakrishna, and sometimes sit on the lap the same way that a child sits on the lap of the mother when she nurses the child. We read all of these things that to an outsider would have seemed very strange, but Sri Ramakrishna looked upon him also as like the baby Gopal, and they would get into a spiritual mood. They're not in an ordinary mood when these things are taking place. Anyhow, these visits started to become more and more frequent. Rakal started to spend the night. Many of them would do that, spend the night either in Sri Ramakrishna's room or on the veranda outside. So he started doing this, and as I say, Sri Ramakrishna knew about the marriage, didn't mind too much, and said, no, my Rakal will never lead a worldly life. And he would very often go into different types of spiritual moods and ecstasy, we can say. Then Sri Ramakrishna, he would note these things. He would say, I remember the first time it happened. I remember exactly where he was sitting. He would tell other people. The first ecstasy, he says, he was rubbing Sri Ramakrishna's feet with oil while there was some recitation of the Bhagavata. Some Pandit had come and was doing some readings from Bhagavata. This was July 22nd, 1883. And he would later point this out to people. This is Sri Ramakrishna speaking. No words can describe Rakal's spiritual mood at that time. He was living in a trance, as it were. He was like a little child, helpless in its mother's arms, and surrendering itself completely to her, always conscious of the divine relationship. And when he was near me, I was transported into a higher spiritual consciousness. I used to play with him just as Yashoda, Krishna's mother, would play with her divine child, Krishna. So this relationship became a very, very intimate relationship that just like almost like a mother and a child. And there was such closeness between them that there was also a little bit of jealousy. That this Rakal became like a jealous child. If too many others came and Sri Ramakrishna paid attention to them, he wouldn't like it. And at one time, it became a bit of a problem. And Rakal, he went on pilgrimage to Vrindavan. Later, he told the people, it's good that mother took him away because others might not have come. He was so jealous. In the presence of Rakal, he's saying all this. And then Rakal says, oh, please forgive me, now I know. So it just lasted for a short period. But it just shows that in the presence of Sri Ramakrishna, he became really just like a child. Now his father, we already know, was a bit of a worldly man and naturally objected to these visits. Here, they went to all this trouble to get his son married and everything, to make him lead a more worldly type of life, and now he's spending all of his time with Sri Ramakrishna. So he was forbidden, father forbade him to go there, and nothing worked. So, and I don't know how this happens, we read it other times too, they locked him in his room. And somehow that they managed to get out, he snuck out, he went to the Dakshineswar, and then there's a whole play about his father coming to meet Sri Ramakrishna. We read about these meetings on a few different occasions, and Sri Ramakrishna, he was the embodiment of truth, and always railed against flatterers. But he flatters his father. Just a little bit. I don't know if flattering is the right word, but at least he tries to make him feel that, yeah, he's also an important person and everything. And this Rakal is such a wonderful son. You won't get a wonderful son unless the father is also wonderful. He makes statements like that. So Rakal's father softened a little bit, but it was really because he saw there were other important people there, deputy magistrates and others, could even be helpful for his business ventures and things. So at some point, he half gave permission. And so Rakal was a little bit free, and we'll find that for long stretches that he stayed with Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineswar. That later, there's Babu Ram, he became Swami Premananda, he stayed, Latu Maharaj stayed, Swami Adbhutananda. So there were others, other direct disciples at different times. Then, of course, when they moved to Kashipur, almost all of them stayed there at that time. One day, his wife came with her mother to meet Sri Ramakrishna, maybe to try to persuade him for him to go back and everything. But Sri Ramakrishna greeted his wife, who is now still just a young teenager, as his own daughter, because he looked upon Rakal as his spiritual son. So he took the girl to meet a Holy Mother and said that, here comes your daughter-in-law, daughter-in-law, because Rakal is the son for them. And so the son of Sri Ramakrishna means son of Holy Mother also. Here comes your daughter-in-law. She has spiritual qualities and will not be an obstacle in his spiritual life. So if we really think that, and I never thought about this before, that Swami Brahmananda is the closest in so many different ways to Sri Ramakrishna, that maybe he was thinking that she'll be like a Holy Mother to him just as he has his Holy Mother, that he was also married, and his wife was a great help in his spiritual life. Maybe he had some idea like that. Now, at some point, Sri Ramakrishna developed a sore in his throat, which became, later we know, became cancer. He was taken to different places, ultimately to stay in the garden house in Kashipur. And this is the time that the real order started to form, and the monastic order started to form, that all these young boys who later became the monks, they started to stay together day and night. They would serve Sri Ramakrishna. And Swamiji Narendra, he received all sorts of instructions that Sri Ramakrishna told him, don't let these boys go home. After I pass away, you keep them all together. All these different things. But one day he made a statement that Rakal, he said, has the keen intelligence of a king. If he chose, he could rule a kingdom. Now, Narendra could have been a little bit, Abhiman. Well, who am I? Huh? You're praising him so much. But Swami Vivekananda, I'm always amazed. He had not the slightest bit of jealousy. He did not have a jealous bone in his body. He was happy to hear that. He said, yes, then from now on we'll call him Raja, we'll call him king. He'll be our leader. Can you imagine? And Swamiji, of course, was just by nature, by his very nature, he was a leader. But he was so happy to hear that. So from that time on, he became known as Raja, and later Raja Maharaj, and sometimes just Maharaj. So after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, because of Narendra, mostly, even though he was engaged in the lawsuits and all sorts of other things with the family, that they did band together. Some of them went home for a short period, and then when the Belur Math was bought, they all went and stayed there. Before that, we know that incident when several of them went to Atpur, the village of Swami Premananda, Babu Ram Maharaj, and on Christmas Eve, they took vows to lead a monastic life, just as Jesus had done, and at that time he took the name of Swami Brahmananda, probably given by Swamiji himself. So they all lived together in Belur Math until one by one they had a desire to go wandering and lead a traditional monastic type of life. So Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda, he consulted with Swamiji because he really was responsible for everything there. And would Swamiji give him permission? Now they knew his nature. He could go off someplace and go into the samadhi, and could he take care of himself, look after his food and everything. So Swamiji said, you can go only if you take somebody with you. So Swami Subodhananda, Koka Maharaj, he went as his attendant. Now they're brother monks, they're equal, but everyone recognized first of all, they recognized Swamiji as the leader, and second of all, they recognized this Swami Brahmananda as a rare example of spirituality that had to be guarded very carefully and looked after. They were afraid that he wouldn't be able to take care of his health, of his food, where he would stay, anything like that, that his inclination to spiritual moods would just make it impossible for him to look after himself. And we know this was the case with Sri Ramakrishna. Well, he always had to have, he had Hridoy there for a while, they always had to have some attendant to look after him. So they went on pilgrimage. They went to Varanasi, several other places. This Swami Brahmananda always had a great longing to go to the Narmada. This is a very sacred place. In India, many sadhus go there. They like to do austerities on the banks of the Narmada River. Some will do a big pilgrimage and everything. And while staying there, it said that he went into that state of nirvikalpa samadhi for 6 days and nights. Now, this is a very rare thing. We talk about the samadhi as if it's nothing. You take a course and you can attain samadhi. Very rare thing. And body looks like it's dead, that you can hardly see breathing or heartbeat or anything like that. So 6 days and nights, a very rare thing. We see with Swamiji, he had his nirvikalpa samadhi for a few minutes in Kashipur. It wasn't a long period. And Sri Ramakrishna called for him after that. So he had to have somebody with him the whole time. The Swami Subodhananda had great fear that he would give up the body. In that state, you can even try to bring somebody down. They may not be aware of any body consciousness at all. Somehow he came down after that period of almost a week. Then went to Vrindavan. Now, there was an earlier visit to Vrindavan. I mentioned briefly that when he went there, Sri Ramakrishna felt that, a little bit good that he's not here because he had become so jealous. But on the other hand, he was nervous. And they got reports that then Rakal, that he came down with fever, that he was quite ill. And Sri Ramakrishna had a great belief that those who have some spiritual association, very strong association with a particular place, can remember that past association and give up the body. So this is the reason why he himself, he never went to Gaya, where his father had that vision, or to Puri, because of association with Sri Krishna and Chaitanya Deva and everything. So he had a little bit of fear that maybe this memory of his association with Krishna and that Leela in Vrindavan would come to the mind of Rakal and he would give up the body. So he was a little bit relieved when Rakal came back. Anyhow, this is the second visit, and he stayed in a state of almost continuous ecstasy. He was there with Swami Subodhananda. They hardly spoke to each other. That Swami Subodhananda would beg food for him. He would come back. They had separate cells almost, little huts, that he would leave food for him. Sometimes he would come back the next day and the food was untouched. That Swami Brahmananda the whole day, he's in some meditative mood and doesn't even notice that it's there. One incident took place, I think at this time, that he's in this little hut. It's quite cold. So some kind person, sadhu or devotee, brought a nice blanket and left it in the room for him. He didn't do anything. He was just observing. Then he saw somebody came in and stole it, and just observed. Mind wasn't not happy when he got it, not upset when it left, just watching. Mind was in such a high plane like that. So he practiced intense austerities, long hours of meditation, day after day after day. People were surprised, even Swami Subodhananda and this Vijay Krishna Maharaj, Vijay Krishna Goswami, that was greatly devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. And he asked him, you received everything at the touch of Sri Ramakrishna. You had your samadhi and everything. Why are you doing all of this? What is the need for such austerities? And Maharaj said, what you say is true, but I'm trying to become established in that vision of God, which I received through my Master's grace. He wanted to be established in samadhi, so that he could really, almost at will, enter into that state. during the wandering, and this also surprises me, how many times they happened to meet each other, the different groups. So they all met together. Swami Subodhananda had some desire to be on his own. So then Swami Turiyananda, he agreed, and he traveled with Maharaj for 2 years. And they met Swamiji in, I think, Mount Abu in Bombay, just before Swamiji was going to the West for the Parliament of Religions. And Swamiji asked Swami Turiyananda to go back to Belur Math and help with the work there. But Swami Brahmananda still was there, so they stayed together for some time and then went back. So he went back. Swami Brahmananda again went to Vrindavan, and he lived there all alone for 1 year. And how he managed it, we don't know exactly, but this is when that incident with the blanket took place. So finally, at the end of that year, Swami Brahmananda felt, now I can work. Now I'm established. Now nothing can shake my mind. And he said he felt the fullness of God in his heart at all times. So he returned to Belur Math. Now during this period, Swamiji's in the West and writing letters back and telling all of them that you build up something, do something. That don't you see how the country has fallen and how people are suffering? There's no education of the poor, all of these things. Can you do something for them? And when Swamiji came back, and they had that first meeting on May 1st, 1897, when they established the Ramakrishna Math in Mission, there was great objection by some of his brother monks. I won't say great objection, they raised objections. That even though implicitly they loved Swamiji and were ready to follow him, it was a funny situation where they knew he was doing Sri Ramakrishna's work, Sri Ramakrishna was living in him on some level, and yet they were a little confused that Sri Ramakrishna said that lectures won't do any good unless you have the badge of authority from God, that first realize God, then look after the world, that you won't be able to help this world, you only help yourself. All of these different things. And here's Swamiji saying, start lecturing, start teaching, do some social service work. So a little bit confused, many of them. But Swami Brahmananda never wavered. There were two people, and Swamiji himself writes, who was the one who supported him from the very beginning? Holy Mother. Yeah, Holy Mother. But also that Swami Brahmananda, that they had this very interesting relationship of such mutual respect for each other and love for each other. Swamiji wrote in one of his letters that everybody may give me up, because there were rumors about him and everything, but not Rakal. He'll never give me up. So they really had a wonderful type of relationship. So when Swamiji came back from the West, this meeting between these two giants was a very wonderful thing. That Swami Brahmananda placed a garland around the neck of Swamiji, and then Swamiji took the dust of Swami Brahmananda's feet. And all of them would bow down before Swamiji, but these two giants, they could do whatever they want. Then Swamiji quoted a Sanskrit verse that said, the son of a guru is to be regarded as the guru himself. Then Maharaj in turn took the dust of Swamiji's feet and said, one's elder brother is to be respected like one's father. So they went back to the monastery, and Swamiji had collected a little bit of money. He really wanted to have, he failed. He failed in that sense, that the work in the West, he wanted to be able to really come back with people to help and money. Whatever he had, he gave to Swami Brahmananda and said, you're the real leader of everything, that I feel very relieved. He said, all this time I've been acting as a trustee. It is a relief to give it back to its real owner, our Raja, Swami Brahmananda. Now, despite this closeness, they were very different. They had very different types of personalities, and it's nice to see how this God consciousness shines through these different personalities in different ways. One very soft and quiet, one very fiery. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that indwells in the realm of the absolute, the impersonal. He is like a sharp, drawn sword of discrimination. Rakal dwells in the realm of God, the sweet one, the repository of all blessed qualities. He is like a child on the lap of his mother, completely surrendering himself to her in every way. I mentioned before about the strength of Swamiji's personality. And one thing that took place during Sri Ramakrishna's life is that Swami Brahmananda, then Rakal of course, that he very easily fell back into a devotional mood and would start going with Sri Ramakrishna to the Kali temple and bow down there. They signed a pledge not to do that as members of the Brahmo Samaj. So Narendra, who was so devoted to truthfulness and everything, he scolded him. He said, "What are you doing? We're not supposed to do all of this." So very gently, Sri Ramakrishna said to him, "Don't say too much to Rakal, that now he's beginning to blossom out, that he's feeling all of that devotion and everything." So Swamiji was like this burning sun, and Raja Maharaj just like the cooling rays of the moon. There's so many nice incidents, this relationship between the two of them, that it was hard for many people to understand. There was the incident of the embankment. I won't go into the whole thing, but Swamiji wanted an embankment made to the going down to the Ganges on the property of the Belur Math. And it was an expensive thing. They didn't have much money. Swamiji was always nervous about money, so he asked them, what will the cost be? And they kind of fudged a little bit. This was Swami Vivekananda. He was the engineer and everything. And it turned out that it was much more expensive than it should have been. And when Swamiji heard, he was furious. And Swami Brahmananda said to Swami Vivekananda, "I'll take the blame. I don't want him to yell at you." He used to yell at him also. And he scolded Swami Brahmananda terribly. And then later, he felt so bad. He said, "Go see what he's doing." And he went, he said, "His door's closed." So Swamiji said, "You fool." I said, "Go see what he's doing. Open the door." And he was sitting on his bed, Swami Brahmananda, very quiet, a few tears and everything. So Swamiji goes and begs his forgiveness and says, "What a horrible person I am. Here is the spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna, and I talked to you that way." And then he patted him. Swami Ramakrishna patted him on the back and said, no, you're our leader, don't feel bad, this and that. So it's a very interesting relationship. There's another story. I don't remember all the details of these stories, but Swamiji asked either one of his disciples or brother disciples to give him a massage. And he wasn't happy with it. "What are you doing? Call Raja." So they called Swami Brahmananda. "You give a massage," told him how it should be done. And he did for a long time. Sweat is pouring down, everything, completely exhausted. And then Swamiji said, "Okay, Raja, thank you, that's enough." And then he left. And then one of them said to Swami Ramakrishna, "I don't understand. How is it that you're a spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna, and yet you're like a servant, you're massaging him and everything?" And Swami Brahmananda said, "You fool, don't you understand what a privilege it is that Swamiji Shiva himself, what a great pleasure and joy and privilege it is to be able to do that." So this is that type of mutual love and respect that they had for each other. Then we see Swami Brahmananda as president of the order, and after Swamiji passed away, how he tried to so calmly and efficiently put into practice and all of the things that Swamiji wanted to see. So many monks joined at that time, so many centers were started, and very silently Swami Brahmananda oversaw everything there. And even though his mind is in such a high plane, he knew practical things, when to buy property, when to do this, when to do that. And the order really got established during his lifetime. He was the president until the day that he passed away, of course. Then his death was also something very, very inspiring. that as he got closer to the end, he was in a very high spiritual mood the whole time. In March of 1922, so this is almost 2 years after Holy Mother passed away, he came down with a very severe attack of cholera and became weaker and weaker. On April 10th of that year, he passed away. But he had a very wonderful vision before he died. He had a vision of Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji and brother disciples, all who had passed away before him. Then he had that vision of Sri Krishna on the lotus, the same vision that Sri Ramakrishna had about him. He had that, of Sri Krishna beckoning him to join him. So this was something that Sri Ramakrishna knew would happen towards the end. And there was another interesting event that took place, that Swami Swahananda, in writing The Great Master, that he mentions this incident about Rakal and the vision and everything. And one of his brothers and disciples said to him, "Oh, Sharad, what have you done that Raja will read this?" And Sri Ramakrishna said, when he remembers his real nature, he'll refuse to live in the body. Same thing he said about Swamiji. So Swami Swahananda said yes, and he removed that section from the book, at least at that time. So, what do we learn from the life of Swami Brahmananda? That these higher states of meditation and ecstasy and bhava and everything, that these are not mere fictions, samadhi, that these things are actually natural things. They're not miraculous types of things, but we don't know how to use the potential of the mind, and we don't have that purity, and we don't have that longing. But this is something that is available, that is not just something that took place thousands of years ago, ancient rishis and everything, that even in this present day, that people can have these types of experiences, that they're gained through grace, but also a lot of hard work and a lot of hard practice and long hours of meditation. And another nice story about the spirituality, these high states of consciousness of Swami Brahmananda. Again, another story, I don't remember all of the details exactly, but I think it was the birth anniversary of Sri Ramakrishna, and there was a kirtan party in that main courtyard. And Holy Mother was watching the whole thing from above. There's a little veranda where the old shrine used to be. And they see that Swami Brahmananda, he's in an ecstatic state, singing and dancing, and then goes into a very deep state of samadhi. And so deep that they had to carry him away, and nobody knew what to do, how to bring his mind back down again. Now, somehow Holy Mother understood and saw, somehow, that Sri Ramakrishna they were dancing together, Swami Brahmananda and Sri Ramakrishna. Now, was it his vision? Was it her vision? Did he actually come? We can't say, but she was the only one who seemed to know that. So somehow, she was the only one she could bring his mind back down a little bit, talking about Sri Ramakrishna and everything, and then send him to the city, Kolkata. And she said he'll take some of the food from the city and live there, and it'll bring his mind back down a little bit. But he went into such a deep state of ecstasy that time, having that vision of Sri Ramakrishna, dancing with him on his birthday. How? I can't explain any of these things, but these were actual facts that the Holy Mother somehow could see that this was happening, and he could confirm this afterwards. So anyhow, we see that these ecstatic states that these great souls can have. We can see how spirituality will manifest itself in such a tangible way. And in the case of Swami Brahmananda, it manifested itself in a very, I would say, a way that made him behave like a child sometimes, and whimsical, and could love to play with children. And if he wasn't in the mood for something, he wouldn't do it. He could be a little recalcitrant like that. This Josephine McLeod, there was a period where every day she said, "Oh, Maharaj, can I come and meet with you?" Every day he'd say, "Not today, I have fever today." Did he really have fever? Don't know. But he would say things like that, and then she would catch him. And fishing. He's a great soul like that. He loved to go fishing. That half the time they say there was no bait or anything. He liked to just sit quietly like that. And there's one funny incident where, see, he's president of the order. Swami Shivananda, Maharaj Maharaj, always saying to him, "Maharaj, you're president of the order. What will people say? What will they think? You're out there fishing." There is some pond near Belur Math. One time somebody came, he's there, and said, "I'm looking for the president of the order." And he said, "Yeah, he stays there at Belur Math." And he pointed him there. And he used to sneak out like a little child. So Swami Shivananda, he could see from the room, upstairs room, he could look out and see this is Rakal is there hiding his fishing rod. So it manifested in such an interesting way with him. They're very childlike. And he liked to smoke a hookah. Half the time there was no tobacco in it. He would go into samadhi. It's just a little eccentric, you could say whimsical, but always great joy. I love to play cards. Sri Ramakrishna is railing against people in their old age playing cards. He loved to play cards. And if he played with somebody, one of the other monks who won, he would get very upset. "You're cheating." Yeah, one was his attendant. He kicked him out. He said, "You're cheating." So he loved to do all of these different things. And great sense of humor. There's one story that Swami Atmajnanananda, one of his beloved brother disciples, he loved to stay in the Sargachi. That was the center that he had started, in the orphanage and everything. Very rarely came to Belur Math, but when he came, the Swami Brahmananda, he'd say, "Come, stay a little longer." He'd say, "No, I want to go back." He said, "Oh, okay." So they arranged for a nighttime train, and he said, you come, we have some bearers, a palanquin, that they'll take you to the train station. So he had it arranged that here for several hours that they're actually going in a circle. Swami Swahananda, he's expecting to get out at the train station. And they open up, and he gets out, he's right there at Belur Math. And Swami Brahmananda is laughing. He said, did you have a good trip? So he just had a wonderful sense of humor. That one time, he told he had all of the monks, he would get them together to meditate. And while they're all meditating, he'd put a little sweet he put in front of each one of them, or a little fruit or something. And then afterwards they came, he said, "Did you all get the fruits of your meditations today?" Yeah. But he had a power. He had a power, could work very silently. There was one very well-known incident. We have two centers on the same compound in Varanasi. One is the Seva Ashram, where they do all the hospital work, and the other is a Advaita Ashram, where they do worship, and sometimes retired sadhus stay there, and meditative place. And they had a big quarrel, the head of one and the head of the other. You don't do any work, you don't come to Arati. Some big problem with the two of them. And they went to Swami Brahmananda and said, "You have to do something. You either change them or scold them, or do something." He said, "Don't say anything. Let me come." So he came. He didn't say a single word to anybody about anything. He simply said, "Every morning you come, we'll have some satsang, we'll sit for meditation, we'll do some japa, prayer, sing some things." And then within a short time, it was perfect peace and harmony there. He didn't have to say anything. So we see that he was very unusual in the way that he worked, that he did things. One other thing about this comparison with Sri Ramakrishna. Physically, they say there was some significance. Now, I don't notice anything myself. You see the picture there in Sri Ramakrishna. But they say even from the back, there was one time Swami Turiyananda, he actually mistook. He thought that he was seeing Sri Ramakrishna, seeing the back of Swami Brahmananda. And when they went to make the statue of Sri Ramakrishna, the first statue, similar to ours, only much bigger, of course, they told the sculptor, you want to know a little bit what his body looked like and everything? Then look at our Raja Maharaj. Now remember, Sri Ramakrishna was a bit heavy when he was younger also. Wasn't always so thin. We know that because of the end, when he was very ill. So Swami Ramakrishna said to the young monks one time, none of you has seen Sri Ramakrishna himself, but now you see Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda, and that is the same thing. Some devotees wanted to offer some fruits and things to Sri Ramakrishna in the shrine. He said to offer this fruit to Maharaj is as good as offering it to Sri Ramakrishna. So all of the other disciples, they felt like that. So let me say a few of some of the special teachings that we have that Swami Brahmananda said. Practice, practice. Through the practice of spiritual disciplines, the heart will be purified and a new realm will open up. You will realize that God alone is real and that everything else is unreal. Work is necessary, but must be accompanied by meditation. And work need not detract from keeping the mind on God. He said, yes, you must work, but I insist that you devote yourselves to spiritual practice and meditation. The one purpose of life is to know God, plunge deep into the sea of bliss, and become immortal. Attain knowledge and devotion, then serve God and mankind. Work is not the end of life. Disinterested work is a means of attaining devotion. Meditate, meditate, dive deep within. Know that God alone is real. Keep at least 3/4 of your mind in God. It is enough if you give 1/4 to service. Anyhow, there's so many other things we learn from the life of Swami Brahmananda. As I said before, I encourage everybody to try to attend this Zoom class on Wednesday morning with Swami Bhaswaranji, very beautiful class. And really, the life of Swami Brahmananda is something very, very inspiring. How he juggled all of these things together, so practical, and yet mind was always united with God. And how Sri Ramakrishna, all of his direct disciples, they represented a certain aspect of spirituality, and how Swami Brahmananda was kind of the one who represented Sri Ramakrishna himself in his ability to go into these spiritual moods and just in so many different ways. So I thought it would be nice today that we'll take a little time and we'll think about the life of Swami Brahmananda. So let it sit for a few minutes first. We want the song first? Okay, we'll sit for a few minutes, then we'll have a final song.